Welcome back to the Empire Builders podcast. I'm Dave Young, and Stephen Semple is sitting right here with me. Well, we're recording. We're virtually sitting directly next to each other. I'm in Austin. He's in Canada. He's right there. Um, and he just whispered the name of today's topic into my ear, and it's Pictionary. And man, it's been a long time since I've played it, but I have played it.
Okay.
I don't know the whole story about it, so I'm all ears. And I've always sucked at it because I couldn't draw a paper bag to save my life.
I'm with you there.
And convince you that it was a paper bag.
My challenge is drawing even a straight line.
Yeah, exactly.
Pictionary is a pretty big deal. In 2001, it was sold to Mattel. That time, they're in 60 countries, 45 languages, and just in the United States, 11 versions of the game. And I haven't looked into what the different versions are, but they have sold a total of 32 million games worldwide.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's a big deal.
It's almost like charades, but you're drawing. Help me remember. Literally, it's been a long time since I've played this.
It is very much like charades on paper, and that was the inspiration to the game. So it started in 1982 in Spokane, Washington, and Ravi Angel has a degree in business, and he's working as a waiter. And he and a bunch of his friends would stay in to play games, right? Because they don't want to go out to spend money. They want to hang out together. And so what would happen is they would start drawing something and people would guess what it was. And again, it was like this whole idea of charades on paper. But the problem was, what made it slow was they would struggle with a word to come up with. That would be the slowest part of the game. So it'd be like your turn to draw something, and it would take you forever to even think about what it is you wanted to draw. So they would start opening the dictionary to look for words randomly to come up with the idea to draw. And they realized this would make a great game. And it led to the name Pictionary, picture plus dictionary, Pictionary.
All right.
And so they started thinking about doing this as a game, and Ravi's mom sent him Trivial Pursuit to make him understand how to package a game. Because remember how innovative that game was at the time in terms of the packaging. In looking at Trivial Pursuit, he realized the words would become the challenge. And he also looked at Trivial Pursuit and he saw Trivial Pursuit has like 6,000 questions. So he probably needs 6,000 words.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But he looked at it and said, they've made it work with that. So that's probably the goal. And like them, he created 4 categories. So the whole idea of categories and the number of words came from looking at Trivial Pursuit. And you need to make it fun. So how do you make it fun? It was by creating a time limit.
Yeah.
Right. The other problem he noticed was one team versus the other.
You already draw poorly. Now do it fast.
No, do it fast. But at least we only have to watch you for a short period of time. The other problem that he noticed was when it's one team versus the other, when the one team is up, it's boring for the other team, right? But that's the reason why they came up kind of with this idea of the steal, right? Where if it's not solved, the other team could solve it. And that was like the all play category. And they wanted to make it look good. So they had this trifold board. So when they got ready to make the game, an uncle of his lent him $35,000 so he could create 1,000 games. So it's June 1st, 1985, and they're ready to launch. But the printer misquoted the job and the price did not include assembly. So all of a sudden they had all this stuff show up and they had to put it all, there's 500,000 cards. They had to put all of this together. So Ravi gets a pizza party to put this whole thing together, did this initial launch to sell to consumers. And he sold a few hundred and then sales just stopped. And he was really struggling to get out there. So he decided, I'm going to sell this to retailers. And he managed to get an appointment with Nordstrom's in July of 1985. And Nordstrom's basically said to him, we don't sell games. And Ravi said, that's exactly why you should do this. So he made a deal with them. He said, look, if I'm able to come in and do an in-store demo, I will take back any that are not sold. So this gets him in the Nordstrom's because they're like, what the heck? They start getting some sales through Nordstrom's, but it's not enough. It still hasn't caught on. So Ravi decides to do PR. Now, again, he's been copying Trivial Pursuit. Remember, Trivial Pursuit, if we go back and listen to Trivial Pursuit Trivial Pursuit, remember, had an awesome PR strategy, right?
They put celebrities in the questions.
Right. So he goes to the
Yeah.
same lady who did the PR for Trivial Pursuit. And here's what she does. She gets them to create a small version with 5 cards and a pencil. And she gets the small version both onto airplanes, and they also mail them out. So in other words, it's a sample, a little tiny sample of the game. Here's 5 questions. Here's a little pencil. You could scribble this out like when you're sitting on a plane or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Between 1986 and 1999, the game goes crazy. It becomes a bestseller, selling like 200 million in sales. And again, in 2000, the company is sold to Mattel. I was not able to find exactly the price, but it was north of $20 million that they sold the company to Mattel for. Here's the thing I did find interesting about the idea, because normally we would say to people, look outside of your industry for inspiration. And what these guys did was look inside the industry. And so for those who want to know more about the Trivial Pursuit story, it's episode 139. But what he did copy was an innovator inside the industry. So he looked at it, he looked at it and said, what did they do? What did they do right? He also went to the same PR person. Normally, you're much better off doing inspiration outside of your industry. But you know what? He managed to figure out the things they did right and to pursue that idea.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
What?
Message.
What?
No. What is the message?
How?
Media.
What?
Not what, but how. How is media?
Which is first?
Message. What you have to say is first.
But I thought how was first.
No, media is second. How the message is delivered is less important than what you have to say. Your message.
So the message is key?
Yes. Oh, and you can book your free starter session on this podcast website.
Back to you, Dave. Dave?
Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing.
I think it's an interesting take on, we've talked about business problem topology mapping before.
Yes.
Where you're trying to solve a problem. So you look at, it doesn't have to be in your industry, but you look at problems that have a similar topology, a similar shape and size, and you look at the solutions that somebody used to solve that problem, and you apply them towards your own problem. And like you said, typically you do that outside your industry, but I think this is a brilliant way of doing what he did was how do we solve this inside the game world, right? What do we copy without copying the game? We copy the strategies and techniques that made that game successful.
Yeah, I just went back and looked it up. PR person that both they used, Trivial Pursuit used, was Linda Pisano was her name.
All right.
Yeah, but think about that success rate, like where she's like 2 big hits. But the interesting thing is, again, what I admire that they did in PR is a lot of places go, oh, let's just do PR. We're going to do a bunch of press releases and whatnot. No, you actually have got to do something that is still interesting because you're asking for somebody's time and attention.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought, this whole idea of here's 5 questions and a pencil, and we're going to distribute this on airplanes, right, would be great because you're on a plane, you're bored. What are you going to do? Oh, you get to play this little game with the person sitting next to you.
It's an interesting game. Like, it's definitely an extroverted game. Like if you think about Myers-Briggs personality types, and that you either are introverted or extroverted, and games like Pictionary are very much an extrovert game. You're drawing in front of people. You don't mind drawing in front of people, and then other people are shouting things out as you draw. Right. If you're an introvert, like there's probably nothing more uncomfortable than doing something like creation in front of a live studio audience.
Almost like the drawing version of karaoke in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
You're not necessarily very good at it, but it's still entertaining to the audience, right?
Like they're probably, I'm thinking there are extroverts that are like, yay, let's play Pictionary, and introverts go, oh my God, I'd rather just crawl in a hole.
Right. It's a significant part of the population, but I also like sort of the whole idea they were all, again, like Trivial Pursuit, has a very similar origin. Trivial Pursuit, they were playing, remember, it was Scrabble. They're missing Scrabble tiles.
Yeah.
They decide to do something different. these guys, as we're home playing this game, we decided to do the drawing part. The slow part is the words. Let's use a dictionary. Next thing you know, you got Pictionary. Like, it is interesting from the standpoint that they kind of had created this own game that they found fun, but needed to find a way to get it out into culture, and both used a PR strategy for getting it out in the culture, but both used something different in terms of the PR. In the Pictionary case, it was getting people to sample the game through PR. In the Trivial Pursuit, it was getting celebrities to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was really interesting.
This also relates to the problem topology. As advertising professionals and copywriters, we have a thing that we call random entry.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I love random entry.
We also consider that to be like the creative handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So an exercise that we teach at Wizard Academy is you have the whole room of people. The instruction is write a sentence that if you were walking through the airport and you overheard it, you'd stop and try to eavesdrop to figure out what the heck they're actually talking about. Right. So you just write this weird random sentence, and then everybody puts them in the hat and you redistribute them randomly.
Right.
So now you have some weird random sentence that I wrote, and I have one that somebody else wrote. And now we have to write an ad. And for whatever product it is that we're trying to sell, our ad has to begin with that sentence. Word for word.
Right.
What's beautiful about that, and what's beautiful about Pictionary is, if I just said, hey, Stephen, just pick a word out of thin air and draw it for me, and I'll see if I can guess it.
Right.
You'd spend way too much time trying to figure out what the word is.
Right.
Right. And you'd be stuck forever.
Yes.
That's almost the problem that people have that aren't ad writers. When they go to write an ad, they don't know how to start.
Yes.
That's a problem that we have as writers of any kind, is I don't know how to start.
Yes.
It's actually a trope in movies and TV shows, right? It's the writer sitting down and they type out one line of text and pull the sheet of paper out, wad it up, throw it away, and try another approach. And when you force somebody to be creative by handing them the seed to the creativity, it makes it both interesting for them, because now they're trying to solve that problem. Oh my God, I've been given this word. How do I even begin? Well, you'll have to begin. Versus, I don't even know where to begin because I don't even know what word I'm going to draw, and I can't think of one that I could easily draw.
Right.
So now what? So I think it's a beautiful example of this random entry approach.
Yeah.
That actually makes it fun. And the ads that people write from our random entry
Fabulous.
are always way better than the ads that they just wrote using some other technique that we teach. They're always, always, always better. And so you'll be a better artist if you start with a random entry.
Well, and this is the thing they observed. That was what slowed it down. What slowed it down was the figuring out of what it is I'm going to draw. And you're way better at saying to somebody, here's the thing. As you're saying, that random entry style writing. And look, when you're at home, like the whole dictionary thing, when you're at home, you can use the dictionary as a random writing exercise of, that's the word I got to start with. Like, even just saying, this is the word I've got to start with. Or go to a book and pull a random sentence out of a book.
Exactly. I mean, I've told people before, that's a great way to start an ad. Just pick a book and open it to a random page, and whatever your finger lands on, that's the opening line to your ad.
Yes.
The beautiful thing about that is it works every time.
It really does. It's amazing.
Because your brain will figure out how to connect that to whatever it is you're writing about.
Yes.
Your brain will figure it out. As long as you don't take like some stupid shortcut and say, and then I woke up from the dream.
Right.
And then you start in on some stupid ad.
You actually have to connect it.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? I'm going to include the ad at the beginning of this. So by this point, somebody will have read it. The ad at the beginning of this actually comes from that exercise. It's Pop-Tart. The first line of this ad actually came from a random writing exercise that Mick Torbay did with Roy Williams, where Kyle said something, Kyle Caldwell, one of our partners, said something, and Roy turned to Mick and said, you need to create an ad for that. And it ended up being into one of our Tapper's Jewelry's ad. And it's the first line of this ad is random entry challenge from Roy Williams to Mick Torbay. So it's a great example of how you can turn it into a fantastic ad.
The other key to this is the time limit.
Yes, and it's a 60-second ad.
It's random entry and the clock is ticking.
Yep.
And so that creates one more little bit of magic that you don't understand that's going on in the back of your mind is that I don't have time to judge myself.
Right.
As bad as I know I'm going to draw, I have to do it quickly, and nobody's going to judge me because I'm just trying to get people to guess this correctly. Beautiful.
Awesome.
We should be using Pictionary at Wizard Academy, I think.
There you go. New idea.
Yeah, kind of a random entry game. Hadn't thought about it that way. Thank you for sharing this story, Stephen.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review. And if you have any questions about this or any other podcast episode, email to questions@theempirebuilderspodcast.com.